hosted by NZSTI's Canterbury branch. Without further ado, I introduce Josiah Beach.
Hey, thank you, Hyden. Cheers. Thanks for that introduction. Great. So thanks all of you for coming out, especially those of you who I know some of you have travelled from as far away as Ashburton and Tekapo to be here tonight, so thank you. Just also want to acknowledge all our NZSTI members here tonight, and those of you here from the University of Canterbury and Interpreting New Zealand. And also thanks to those of you here tonight who have brought me back some of these script samples from the ends of the earth. You know who you are, so thanks for your help there. So I hope you enjoy the exhibition here tonight, where you can see authentic examples of every single living script in the world today. So this collection is the result of a 5-year project of mine. But I'm just going to go through now how to recognize each of these scripts, even if you don't speak the language. Right, so in order to cover everything in one session, some generalizations are made, and the complexities of some usage is also simplified. But I'd love to talk with you afterwards if you want to discuss anything in more detail. So the scripts we're going to look at are only living scripts. And for the purposes of this presentation, that's defined as a script that is still published on a regular basis by native speaker communities. So what exactly is a script? A quick question. How many languages do you think there would be in the world, roughly? Any ideas? 6,000, yes, 7,000, yeah, exactly, that's right. Which there's 6 to 6,500 according to most approximate estimations, which is quite incredible when you think that there's less than 200 sovereign countries in the United Nations. So it's a huge number of languages. However, the vast majority of these languages were never written down until the last 100 years. They were spoken only. So a script like the Latin script, which we use to write English, A, B, C, etc., can be modified to write different languages, as I'm sure you're all aware. For example, in Vietnamese there are diacritics or accents, such as this, or this. In Polish there are diacritics such as this, what else? And so on and so forth. So even though the script is modified slightly to facilitate different languages, it's still considered the same basic script because it has the same basic letters, even though there are additions at the top and bottom. So in the same way as Latin is adapted for use for lots of different languages, the Arabic script is also modified to be used by different languages as well. And they do a similar thing by adding different diacritics in order to express the sounds that may not have been in the original Arabic language. So if there are around 6 to 6,500 languages in the world, how many living scripts do you think there would be today? 58? Yeah? 38, yeah. How did you know that? Well done, yeah. There are 38 living scripts in the world today. And 10 of those 38 are actually only used by very small minority communities, which leaves only 28 scripts which are used on a national level or in an official capacity. So 28 scripts is actually, it's quite possible to get your head around it, as hopefully we'll do tonight. So, even though theoretically any script can be used to write any language, as we all know, usually one language is written in one script. As an example here, you can see here here's a Japanese and Chinese sentence written in the Latin alphabet. But as we all know, usually Japanese and Chinese are written in Japanese and Chinese scripts, respectively. The English language can also be written in different scripts. These are both two English sentences using the English language in Chinese characters and Arabic characters. But, of course, we all know English isn't usually written in these scripts, it's written in the Latin alphabet. I could write, for example, in Chinese, hello, or hello, but it doesn't have any meaning, it's just the sound. Or I could write in Arabic, hello. But again, it doesn't have any meaning. So the key concept here is that a script, a writing system, is separate from a language. So languages are spoken things, and they can be written in different ways. So some scripts like Latin and Arabic are adapted for use in lots of different languages, but other scripts are used only for one language, such as Japanese or Korean. They're only used for one language. So this map here shows the different types of scripts. So we can class scripts in the following ways. The blue shaded parts of the map here are alphabets. And alphabets are scripts which theoretically have one letter for each phoneme or sound in the language. Both vowels and consonants. Separately, they have an independent letter. The green shaded parts of the map here are Abjads. And Abjad scripts usually only include consonants. Vowels are only written optionally or in certain circumstances. The brown, yellow and orange sections of the map here are Abugidas. And in these scripts there is one letter or character per syllable. And this character is modified to change the vowel or to put consonant clusters together. The red area of the map here is Chinese characters. Some characters are pictorial representations of an object, and others represent an idea or a concept. Some of them have a semantic meaning component with a phonetic radical at the side. Although with Chinese characters there's no consistent system for how they're made up, which makes them very difficult to learn. Finally, the pink areas of the map here are scripts which were inspired by or invented under the influence of Chinese characters. So first of all, we'll look at alphabets around the world. As you can see on the map, the Latin script, which is this light blue, is used in every continent in the world and for languages that fit into every language family in the whole world. It's got a vast and extensive usage around the world. The Cyrillic script, which is this darker blue, is used to write Russian and also most of the languages of countries in the former Soviet Union as well. There are also 3 other alphabets in Europe which are used exclusively for one language in one country each. And these are Greek, Armenian and Georgian. So we're going to look at each of these in turn. So the Latin script was used by the Roman Empire, and after that collapsed, the Latin alphabet was used by countries that were in its former territory. So in later centuries, broadly speaking, use of the Latin script has followed European colonization around the world. And because many of the places that were colonized didn't have their own writing system before European contact, with the exception of places like Vietnam, therefore many languages in the world were written in the first time in the Latin script that we know for English. The next script is Cyrillic. This is named after St. Cyril, who was a missionary to the Russians, and he's credited with developing the script. So also Armenian and Georgian scripts are also attributed to early missionaries who were the first to write down some of the early languages of Europe. So Cyrillic is quite easily recognizable to English speakers as the Russian alphabet, and so that's often another name that's given to it. Many Cyrillic letters are similar or even exactly the same as Latin. Use of the Cyrillic script, broadly speaking, has followed Russian expansion around the world. And it's been adapted to be used by other countries in Central Asia that were part of the Soviet Union. The Greek alphabet has not changed significantly for centuries. The Greek alphabet was the first one to assign independent letters to vowels, and this revolutionized writing in Europe. In fact, every other alphabet here developed from the Greek alphabet. It predates all of them, and Greek is the basis of the rest of them. The Armenian script, like Greek and Georgian, is only used in one country, Armenia. Georgian as well is only used in Georgia. And it's the only European script which does not have capitals or lower cases. So next we are going to look at how to recognize each of these scripts. So if we can do next slide. Nope. All right. Yes, perfect, right. So this is Latin, the script we're all familiar with as English speakers. This text is actually in Italian, which is a tribute to the language the script was originally written in, Latin. So can I go next? The next one, thanks. Oh, maybe not. No problem, here we go. Right. Cyrillic. Cyrillic is the most similar script to Latin. Over half of its letters are actually recognizable to English speakers, although several of them are pronounced differently. For example, these letters here, if you can read them. In the Latin alphabet we pronounce them B and P. In the Cyrillic alphabet, V and R, respectively. So if you want to learn a new alphabet just for fun, I'd recommend the Cyrillic script. After just a week, you could learn to write your name in the Cyrillic script or sound out Russian words, even if you don't know what they mean. Next script we have here is the Greek script. It's probably the next most familiar script to English speakers. Many of its letters are recognizable, but fewer than in Cyrillic. Some letters that are familiar to English speakers that might help you identify this are theta, psi, what else? Sigma, and omega. Also, Greek may, but not always, have accents above some of the letters, as you can see here. Next is Armenian. The distinguishing feature of this script is, for English speakers at least, is the many straight lines that it has, and the fact that although many of the letters look quite familiar, actually none of them are exactly the same as the Latin script at all. Many of them have lines which extend higher or lower than in the Latin script. For example, this one here, which is a little bit like a lowercase u, but goes a lot higher. This one, which looks like an H, but goes lower. And this one here, which looks like a upside down lowercase m, at least to English readers. Finally, in this section is Georgian. So as you can see, a recognizable feature of this is the curved font, which looks like it resembles calligraphy in many ways. However, there is also a newer Georgian font which is sometimes used these days, and it looks very different from this. But we'll look at that in the next slide. So, now's a chance for you to have a go, recognizing some of these scripts. You can have a look at your handout to see the scripts we've just covered. Does anyone want to have a guess at the first one here, number 1? Greek, yep. Why do you think Greek?
Sorry?
Why does it look like Greek? It's written right, Sima. Yes, the letter Sima. Yeah, that's right. Yep. Number 2. Latin. It is Latin. Yep, exactly the same alphabet that we use in English. Number 3. Georgian. That's right, the rounded one. Number 4.
Latin.
It's Vietnamese, but remember, we're talking about scripts. Latin, it's a Latin script. It is indeed Vietnamese, but the script is the Latin script. Number 5? Greek, why is that? Sima again, all right, that's a useful letter. Number 6? Cyrillic, exactly, yep. Any particular letters stand out?
B.
B, yeah. This one here, number 7?
Armenian.
Yes, that's right. Number 8?
Armenian.
It's Armenian again, yep. Number 9? Russian, which is Cyrillic, yeah, that's right. It is the Russian language. Number 10? Yeah, it is Georgian. This is Georgian in the other script, the other font rather. So as you can see, the fonts are very different from each other, and they're both used these days in modern Georgia alongside each other. So yeah, it can be hard to recognize that as Georgian. Number 11. Cyrillic or Latin? This is a trick question because all of these letters appear exactly identically in both the Cyrillic and the Latin alphabet. So if we pronounce it according to Latin pronunciation, we get pectopa, right? But if we pronounce it according to Cyrillic pronunciation, it's restoran, which is the Russian word for restaurant. So that's a trick question. It could be Cyrillic or Latin. All right, the second category we're going to look at is Abjads, or consonant alphabets as they're sometimes known. So the green shaded parts on the map here are Abjads. The main green you can see here is the Arabic script, as well as Hebrew in dark green right here, and also Mongolian as a minority language in China. Amharic actually is not classified as an Abjad. Amharic is in the next section. Yeah, good question though. So Abjad scripts emphasize consonants, while vowels are only used in certain circumstances. Although even languages that are pure Abjads do have ways for denoting vowels specifically if they need to, such as the diacritics that you can see in Hebrew or Arabic. For example, the Arabic written in the Quran is full of diacritics everywhere, and the reason for that is to make sure that the pronunciation of 6th century Arabic is preserved. So diacritics or accents can be added if necessary to denote vowels and explain the pronunciation, although they wouldn't usually be included in normal text. So the Arabic script has been used wherever Islam spread around the world. Originally, in the places it spread, it was only used to write the Arabic language. But
This is Arabic.
yes, that's right. This is an Arabic letter up here. So originally, wherever Islam spread, the Arabic script was used to write the Arabic language, but then it was later adapted for the local languages by adding diacritics, etc. And so in the past, it has been used in Europe, in Turkey. It's been used in the Middle East, in Persia/Iran, Afghanistan, Pakistan, etc., and in the Gulf states, throughout North Africa, and also in Central Asia before the Soviet Union. Also as far away as Malaysia in the Southeast Asia. However, the current use of the Arabic script is actually mainly here in the Middle East and North Africa. Next is Hebrew, which is commonly used as a majority language only in the State of Israel and only since 1948. Although, of course, it's also used by a sizable Jewish diaspora around the world as well. Finally, in the Abjad category is Mongolian. So Mongolian is only used officially in the Inner Mongolian region of China. So if we can do the next slide, we'll look at these scripts one by one. So the 3 living Abjads of the world today are all written from right to left, which in the case of Mongolian is actually tilted 90 degrees, so it's written vertically. So the Arabic script has been used to write many, many languages, just like the Latin script has. Languages including Arabic, Farsi, Urdu, Dari, Uyghur, and many more. When the Arabic script is used to write a language other than the Arabic language, it is usually adapted to include letters for vowels, and therefore technically it is more like an alphabet than a true Abjad. Several places like Turkey and Malaysia have actually switched from the Arabic script to the Latin script, and this is in part due to difficulties clearly representing vowels, which is not something that Arabic is naturally designed to do. Central Asian countries that were annexed and absorbed into the Soviet Union since the collapse of the Soviet Union in the 1990s have switched between the Cyrillic script and the Latin script, often several times, but haven't gone back to the Arabic script. Next is the Hebrew script. So that's been used to write Jewish languages for thousands of years. For over 1,000 years, though, it was only understood by scholars, and it was essentially a dead script. There were no native speakers or writers of it. However, something historically unprecedented happened. So the Hebrew language and script is the only one that's been completely resurrected from extinction. And after there being no native speakers for over 1,000 years, there are now over 9 million people that speak Hebrew as their first language and write the Hebrew script as the first script they learn. It's also quite a miracle that Mongolian is not extinct. So the country of Mongolia switched to using the Cyrillic script under the influence of the Soviet Union, although it was never part of it. And it was only in the Inner Mongolian region, which is a part of China, that the script was preserved. This is in part because Chinese characters are so ill-suited to writing any other language apart from Chinese. And so that's why it's preserved. But yeah, it contributes to the diversity of the scripts of the world, so it's fantastic that it has survived. Also, Mongolian is the only language that is exclusively written vertically, although Japanese and Chinese can be written vertically on occasion. So next we'll look at how to recognize each of these 3 Abjad scripts. Arabic, first, is probably one of the most recognizable scripts in the world. Its distinctive features are that it's written from right to left. Many of its letters are connected within a word. Every letter has 3 forms depending on where it is in the word. So for example, there's the initial form, which is, here's as an example, if it's at the beginning of a word, the medial at the beginning, in the middle rather, and the final if it's at the end of a word. So you can see here this is the letter N for N, and you can see the dot that appears over the top, regardless of which form it takes. So it's a very cursive and rounded script. I think that's all I was going to say about Arabic. Obviously, as I said, diacritics can be used to denote sounds that were not originally in the Arabic language. Next is Hebrew. Things that are recognizable about the Hebrew script are that its letters are quite square or block-like. It's also written from right to left, like Arabic, and its distinguishing characteristic for English speakers are the empty box shapes of its letters, is how I describe it. Diacritics can also be used to denote vowels if necessary, although I can't see any there in that example. Finally, Mongolian. Mongolian is quite easy to recognize. Its distinctive features are that it's the only language exclusively written top to bottom, vertically. Its letters are connected together, like Arabic. And each letter, again, has three forms, like in Arabic, depending on where that letter comes in the word. It is, yep, in columns from left to right. Interestingly, it has one dot for a comma and two dots for a full stop. Right, okay, so now's a chance for you to practice recognizing these scripts. You can again look at your handout for examples. Anyone want to have a guess at number one? Mongolian, why?
Vertical.
It's vertical, yeah. Number two?
Arabic.
Arabic, why? What makes it look Arabic? Cursive, yep, letters are joined together. Yep. Number three? Hebrew, yep, the empty box-like shapes. Number four? Arabic, yeah, why? Because you know Arabic, yes. Yep, so again you've got the letters joined together and cursive-like script. Number five, Hebrew, yep, square letters. And number six, Mongolian, yes. Yeah, easy, right? Look at you. You're recognizing scripts like pros. You'll impress all your friends, depending on who your friends are. Okay, the next section we're going to look at is Abugidas, or as they're sometimes known, syllabic alphabets. So these are the brown, yellow, and orange sections of the map. They do not have capital or lower cases like European alphabets, and they do not have initial, medial, and final forms like Arabic and Mongolian do. Instead, every consonant letter, so to speak, is added. I'll just write it here as an example. Every consonant letter has an inherent R vowel after it. For example, this is Ka in the Devanagari script. And then if you want to modify the vowel, you add a diacritic like this, and that Ka becomes Ke, or alternatively, you could add this, and Ka becomes Ku. Following this, you put different letters together to form a word. So for example, here we have Ka Na, and that could become Ku Nu or Ka Ne, if that makes sense. So there's one letter per syllable. And if there are consonant clusters, then the letter is altered again to express kr or tr, etc. So that's basically how an abugida works. There's one letter per consonant, which is then adapted to modify the vowel. Right, so the brown part on the map here is the Ge'ez script, which is used to write Amharic in Ethiopia, and it's also used to write Tigrinya in Eritrea, which became independent from Ethiopia in 1991. So apart from Ge'ez, all of the other abugidas in the world are related. They all descend from the same common Brahmic script in northern India. And so the scripts of India can be broadly categorized into northern branch and southern branch, as you can see by the colors there. And as well as India, several other Southeast Asian countries also use abugidas. So broadly speaking, use of the abugidas here followed the spread of Hinduism and then later Buddhism in later centuries. So interestingly, most of the Abugidas in the world have tended to develop into an entirely new script when they are used to write a new language, rather than having diacritics added, although there are some exceptions to this. So let's look at all the Abugidas. There's a good number of them. First of all, there's the Gur script used in Africa. So it's actually not related to these other Abugidas. It developed from the same source as Hebrew and Arabic, but it branched off at a very early stage and ended up becoming an Abugida. So all of the other Abugidas are related. Next, there are the 5 northern branch Abugidas used in India: Bengali, Devanagari, Gujarati, Gurmikhi, and Tibetan. We have the 6 southern branch Indian scripts: Kannada, Malayalam, Odia, Sinhala, Tamil, and Telugu. Other Abugidas used in countries outside of India are Burmese, Khmer, Lao, and Thai. And then finally, we are going to look at Thaana, which doesn't fit into the above category, and it's not even an Abugida. It's a very unique script, and it has a very peculiar background, which we'll look at shortly. So let's look at how to recognize each of these scripts. So firstly, Gur, as you can see here, is a very distinctive angular and irregular shaped script, as you can see here, and you can also see a closer up example in your handouts there. The Devanagari script is actually used for several different languages, including the Hindi language, although this example sentence here is actually in Nepali, which is a tribute to our resident Nepali translator here, Sailesh. So its distinguishing feature is that within a word, it has an almost always constant line along the top, and that's unbroken. There's only spaces between the words, and diacritics can be used, written above it as necessary. Next is the Bengali script. Bengali is actually quite similar to Devanagari, but one way to tell the difference between Devanagari and Bengali is that Bengali often has more sharper shapes or slender shapes than Devanagari. Next is Gujarati. Gujarati is used almost exclusively for the Gujarati language in Gujarat state in India. It's also very similar to the Devanagari script, but its distinctive feature is that it has no horizontal line across the top. So you could almost think of it as being Devanagari without the horizontal lines. Next is Gurmikhi. The Gurmikhi script is used to write the Punjabi language of northeast India. Its distinguishing feature is that although it has a line across the top like Devanagari, the line is not consistent, and it is broken in places, as you can see here, 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 here. So it will dip. It's not a continuous line as Devanagari has. Finally, in this section is Tibetan. So the Tibetan script is used to write Tibetan in Tibet and Bhutanese in Bhutan. Its distinguishing feature is the curved letters at the bottom, the curved tails, and also the apostrophe-like symbol that appears between every single syllable, which you can probably see better in the handout. There's a common dot-like symbol there. All right, so now's your chance to put this into practice. Does anyone want to have a guess at try to recognize these scripts? Again, you can refer to your handout to see examples of them. Number 1 here. Gujarati, yes. Why?
No line.
Yes, there's no line at the top. Yep. Number 2. Devanagari, yes. Why?
Line.
Yep, there's a consistent line that's unbroken. Number 3.
Yeah, yes.
Yes. Why?
Oh, it's crazy.
It's crazy. Yeah, very irregular kind of shapes, right? Quite angular shapes. Number 4.
Bengali.
Yes, yes. As you can see here, it's sharper, and it's got sharper than the Devanagari script here. Number 5. Gujarati again, yes. Why?
No line.
No line across the top. Yep. Number 6.
Bengali.
Yes. Yep. Sharper shapes. Number 7.
Gurmikhi.
Yes. Why Gurmikhi? Yeah, the line's broken. It's not consistent. Yeah. Okay. Anyone else? Number 8.
Tibetan.
Tibetan. Why Tibetan? Yep, the tails at the bottom. It has tails at the bottom, sloping tails. Yep. Number 9. The Ge'ez. The Ge'ez script used in Ethiopia and Eritrea. Yep. Number 10. Tibetan again. Number 11. Gurmikhi, that's right. Yep, the line is broken. And finally, number 12. It's Devanagari again. Yep, exactly. All right, next we are going to look at the southern branch, Abugidas, in India. So, unlike the northern scripts, where there's often a horizontal line, in southern script, Abugidas, instead of flat tops, the letters are often rounded. Now, one explanation for this is that in southern India, almost all writing was done on palm leaves, which were engraved with needles. And so, if there were lots of straight lines, it would cause the palm leaves to split. Hence, the letters became more rounded. So, the first one here is Odia, formerly spelt Odia. Its distinguishing feature is that almost all of its letters are rounded at the top. It's been described by Japanese linguist Akira Nakanishi as a parade of bald heads, which is not a very complimentary description, but it is a very useful way to help you recognize it. Next is Telugu. A distinguishing feature of Telugu is the common V-shaped hat diacritic on the top of many of its characters, looking like this. And you can see that on a regular basis along the top here. And that's a quick way to identify Telugu. Next is Kannada. So the Kannada script is actually in some ways similar, but it has its own distinctive diacritic, which is this. Is quite commonly above letters, as you can see here, and you can see closer examples in your handout. So that's a quick way to identify Kannada. Next is Malayalam, used in southern India. It has a distinctive walking stick vowel sign, which you can see here, here, and here, pronounced ka, which can help you to identify it, which is written like this. Here, and that can help you identify it as well. Next is Tamil. Tamil script is used to write Tamil in southern India and also Sri Lanka. So its main distinguishing feature is the amount of straight lines that it has, which is unusual for a southern branch Indian script. And also the regular dot diacritic, which appears above a lot of letters. Finally in this section is Sinhala, used to write the Sinhalese language of Sri Lanka. A distinguishing characteristic of this script is that it has almost no straight lines at all, with lots of looping circular letters. Okay, so let's have a review. You can consult the examples on your handout again. Does anyone want to have a guess at identifying these 6 Abugida scripts from southern India? Number 1? Odia, yes, why? Bald heads, yes, it's a memorable way to help you remember it. Number 2? Kannada, that's right, yep, why? Yep, the distinctive diacritic, which actually is on 4 of those 5 letters there. Number 3? Telugu, yep, why? Yep, that's right, the V shape. Yep, number 4? It's Malayalam with the walking stick shape diacritic, and also this ka letter over there. Number 5. Yes, it's Odia again with the rounded tops. Number 6. No, this one is Malayalam again with that shape that goes around there. Number 7. This one's a little bit hard to identify. This one is Sinhalese. Sinhala, sorry. Number 8. Kannada, yep, with the distinctive diacritic there, number 9. It's the same as this one. It's Sinhalese, yep, almost no straight lines at all, lots of looping letters. Number 10? Yes, Tamil, yep. Number 11? Yes, yep. And number 12? Number 12 is Tamil as well. All right. Whew, well done. Right, so now we're going to look at the last section in the Abugida category. We're going to look at 4 Abugidas which are used in Southeast Asian countries other than India. And then we're also going to look at Thaana at the end. So these 4 Abugidas we're going to look at are still considered part of the Indian writing zone, and they also descend from the same common Brahmic script as the others. So Burmese. The Burmese script is used in Myanmar, formerly known as Burma, hence the name. A distinguishing feature of Burmese is the ya or ra letter, which when combined with other vowels is written like this and loops right over. As you can see here and here and also here. Another way to identify is also the hollow colons like this that resemble English colons, which you can see here, 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 here and here, etc. They are a letter. They're not a. It's not punctuation. It's actually part of one of the letters. The next script is Khmer, which is what we call in English Cambodian. And a distinguishing feature for Khmer is the zigzag shapes above most of the letters. So if you look for that zigzaggy shape, that will tell you it's Khmer. Next is Lao and Thai. Now Lao and Thai are actually very similar, and our resident Thai expert, Mr. Robin Bickley, has told me that there's actually a 30% overlap of mutual intelligibility between these two. But a way to differentiate between them is that Lao is more rounded, whereas Thai is straighter letters. All right, finally, Thaana, which is completely separate to these other scripts in the Abugida category. It's not actually an Abugida at all. It only came into being in the 1600s. So the first 9 letters of this alphabet resemble Arabic numerals that were in use at the time, and the following 9 letters resemble Telugu numerals that were in use at the time. So all of the letters in the alphabet come from these 2 sets of 9 numbers in other scripts. It's also written from right to left. Consonants are written on the bottom, followed by a vowel at the top. So you change the vowel at the top to, if you want to move from ka to ku, etc. So a theory for this unusual use of numerals to make up the writing system for a language is that the letters were deliberately scrambled in order to make them difficult to read for the local populations. The theory is that the script was only used by scholars who were involved in sorcery, and they used them to write incantations or fadinta and keep them secret from people. So that's a theory about how the script developed in such an unusual way that its letters were made up of numbers from other scripts. But these days it's still alive, and the Thaana script is the official script of the 400,000 population of the Maldives Islands in the Indian Ocean, although it was in danger from 1976 to 1978 when it was briefly replaced by the Latin script. Thankfully though, it's still around and it's the official language of the Maldives. So, now's your chance to practice recognizing and identifying these 5 Southern Asian scripts. You can check again your examples on the handout. Does anyone want to have a guess at number 1?
Burmese.
Burmese, yes. Because of the rounded letter there and also the colon-like symbol. Number 2? Thai, no. Look, the distinctive feature here is the zigzaggy shape above the letters. So this Cambodian, yeah. It's actually pronounced Khmer, although it looks like it's pronounced Khmer. That's the language, the people, and the script, Khmer. Number 3? Yes, this one is Thai, straight, lots of straight lines. Number 4? No, this one's Khmer again with the zigzags at the top. Number 5? Sorry?
Burmese.
Burmese, that's right. Yep, you can see that distinctive shape there in the letter and also the colons.
Happy Recula.
This was actually a photo I took in Myanmar, and I believe it is just a rat killer brand. This was an advertisement for rat killer, and it has an English title as well as Burmese. Number 6? Yes, Lao, exactly. Yep, like Thai but more rounded. Number 7?
Thaana.
Yes, Thaana. Yep. Number 8? Lao again. Yes. Number 9? Yes. And number 10? That's right. Yep. Well done. So, as you can see on the map above, we've actually covered everything in the whole world except for these 3 scripts in Northeast Asia. So, there are actually only 3 places in the world where writing has emerged spontaneously, isolated from other scripts. Usually what happens is that a script is adapted and borrowed and develops out of another script. But the 3 places where scripts have emerged spontaneously are in Central America with Mayan hieroglyphics. These are now extinct and have no surviving child scripts. The second place where it developed was Mesopotamia/Egypt with Egyptian hieroglyphics. And all of the scripts we've looked at tonight can all trace their roots back to a common ancestor in Mesopotamia. The third and final place where a script has emerged spontaneously without outside influence is in China, with Chinese characters, where Chinese characters developed out of pictorial representations of an object. Initially they were just drawing a small picture of the object itself. But modern Chinese characters today are officially used in China, Hong Kong, Macau, Taiwan and Singapore, as well as a very sizable diaspora around the world. As you probably know, just about any major city in the world has Chinese characters due to the Chinese diaspora spread out around the world. So they're a common sight around the world, including right here in Christchurch. So there are 2 versions of modern Chinese, the longer form traditional characters used in Hong Kong and Taiwan, and the simplified forms that are used everywhere else. So every single character in Chinese not only has a sound, but also a meaning attached to it. There's an inherent meaning in every character. So unlike in English where, for example, the sound t for tea is used in hundreds, thousands of different words. It just represents the sound t, usually. Sometimes it's silent or combined with others. But if I have, for example, the word here, T-E-N, 10, and I say, what's the meaning of T in the context of 10? You say, it doesn't have a meaning, it's just a sound. It's a visual representation of a phonetic sound. So Chinese characters tie meanings to sound, and you can't have a sound without a meaning, which is unique compared in contrast to every other single script we've looked at. Next is the Japanese script, which is used only in Japan. It consists of 2 parallel syllabaries as well as a sizable set of Chinese characters known as kanji. The Korean script is used only to write the Korean language. It's used in both North and South Korea, although apparently in the North it is used exclusively without Chinese characters, and in South Korea it's common to see some Chinese characters mixed in with Korean, as you can see on the newspaper example there. It's also used by Korean ethnic minorities in northeast China near the border. So let's look at these bit by bit, one by one. Chinese characters developed completely separately and isolated from other scripts, as I mentioned. Chinese characters were originally pictograms that were just showing an object. So that is to say, they looked like the object. It was a small picture of what it was supposed to represent. But later, these characters were developed into ideograms, which represented a concept or an idea. And Some of them have partly a semantic component with a meaning and a phonetic radical, which gives you a hint at the pronunciation. So every other single writing system, as I just mentioned now, is showing the phonetic representation of the spoken word. But Chinese characters don't do this at all. And a way to represent this to English speakers would be to compare these two words, or these two symbols here. So the first one here, 3. It represents the sound of English, th-r-e, and we just happen to know in English that represents the numeral 3. Of course, in other languages this has no meaning. But we also pronounce this one as 3, and it means 3 in other languages, even if it's pronounced differently. There's nothing about this to tell you the pronunciation, but when we see it, we know the pronunciation anyway. There's nothing here that says th, r, or e at all. However, once you know that it means 3, it's easy to explain it logically and say, well, there are 3 points here, and they're all connected together, so it's quite logical that it represents 3. And this is in some ways what Chinese characters are like. Once you know what they mean, you can break them down and explain what they mean. But you have to know them and memorize them first, because there's no systematic way that you can be 100% sure of what a new character means or how it's pronounced. There are things that can give you a clue, but you can never know for sure. So it's the script is tied very closely to the spoken language. So, because they were isolated from other countries, China's neighbours, Japan and Korea, initially had no choice but to write their languages in Chinese characters, to which the script was very unsuited. However, they did later develop their own scripts to write their languages. But they developed them under the influence of Chinese characters, quite isolated from outside influence. Japanese is one of the most fascinating writing systems in the world. The language is completely unrelated to Chinese in any way whatsoever. So therefore, Chinese characters, which the Japanese call kanji, were naturally quite unsuited to representing the Japanese language. So by the 8th century, 2 parallel syllabaries of 46 symbols each had developed to express the 46 sounds of Japanese, independent of any meaning. So these syllabaries just explain meaning like an alphabet, a sound without a meaning. They're called katakana and hiragana. And so although theoretically you could use the symbols in either syllabary interchangeably, hiragana has come to be used for grammatical suffixes and particles, whereas katakana is mainly used for non-Chinese foreign loanwords, of which Japanese has a staggeringly large amount. Finally, Korean. Korean, like Japanese, initially wrote their language in Chinese characters, which are known as hanja in Korean. But since Chinese characters only really represent the Chinese language well, Korean needed its own script. Nevertheless, Korean continued to be written only in Chinese characters right up until the 1400s, when the Korean script known as Hangul was developed. So these days it is used in Korea also in conjunction with some Chinese characters, although apparently that's not officially sanctioned. And apparently also, as time goes on, the use of Chinese characters in Korean is diminishing over the years. Hangul, the Korean alphabet, is sometimes described as an alphabetic syllabary. So it doesn't fit too well into specific categories.
Chinese characters are still used in the Korean language today?
No, I don't. But do you? No, you don't.
That's my question.
No, I don't. No, that's a good question.
I believe they use all the Chinese characters, but it's only used for relative means, like for a special occasion or name.
Right, okay, so I'll just repeat that for the sake of the microphone. How many Chinese characters are used in Korean? Apparently they can use any Chinese characters, but they're only used in specific circumstances or more formal situations, perhaps. I'll have to look that one up afterwards. So let's look at how to recognize these 3 scripts. Chinese people actually consider traditional and simplified versions of characters to be variants of the same script. In fact, only 30% of commonly used characters have a different form between traditional and simplified, leaving 70% of common characters which are identical between either traditional or simplified. Spoken language is not affected at all, whether traditional or simplified versions are used. Simplified Chinese doesn't mean the language is simplified, but rather that a smaller number of strokes are used. As you can see with this character here, it's simplified to here. But you can also see that many of these characters are identical between. So Chinese characters can be recognized by complex characters that have a large number of strokes and very little repetition. Most of you probably see Chinese characters quite regularly wherever you live. Often the shapes are quite squarish as well, rather than looping or rounded. So you can only really tell the difference, if you don't speak Chinese, you can only really tell the difference between traditional and simplified characters if you have parallel sentences like you do here. As I said, the traditional ones are more complex with a greater number of strokes in the characters where there is a difference at all. Japanese. Because Japanese uses a mixture of complex Chinese characters, kanji, like here, 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 and here, and mixed in with simpler, less cluttered letters, the hiragana and katakana like this. A way to identify this is to look for this distinction between complex Chinese characters and simpler, less cluttered strokes. In newspapers and novels, Japanese can also be written vertically, although it's generally written left to right, like in English. Finally, Korean. The Korean script's distinguishing feature is that it has lots of perfect complete circles and lots of straight lines at 90-degree angles. And I think I've already covered everything else I was going to say about Korean. I think Korean's actually quite an easily recognizable language as well. It has a distinctive look about it. Right, so now's a chance to practice identifying these three remaining scripts, and I don't expect non-Chinese speakers to be able to guess whether it's a traditional simplified version of Chinese. So number one here, any guesses? Korean, why? The circles, yeah, it's quite recognizable. Number two? Chinese, someone said?
Simplified.
Yes, why?
Or the first character.
Ah, okay, right. So you know some Chinese? Yes. So if you know Chinese, you can recognize this radical, for example, that is simplified. But again, a number of very complex characters with lots of strokes and almost no repetition. Number three, Chinese again. And is it traditional or simplified? Traditional, that's right. Yep. So if you speak Chinese, you can say, oh, look, that's a very complex traditional character. But if you don't speak Chinese, that might be difficult to identify. Number four? Korean, yes, why? The circles, yeah. Number five? Japanese, yes, why? The manga, yeah. The manga. You can see here, I hope you can see from where you are, complex characters followed by a simpler character. Simpler characters here with some complex characters at the bottom. Number six, Chinese. Someone said traditional. It is traditional, yes. This is a character that's in the traditional form. So, for example, in a sentence here, this character has a different form in simplified. This character has a different form in simplified, and this one. So that's three characters that would be different in traditional and simplified. All the others are the same between either version. Finally, number seven. Sorry? Japanese, yes. Why? Complex character followed by a very simple rounded character. And again here, simpler characters with a very cluttered, complex character. All right. So my collection here today also includes a number of scripts which are very, very rare. They're still living languages, but in many cases the samples I have here are examples of the only publication which still uses the script at all. In fact, the Cherokee newspaper has actually now ceased printing, and so now it could be classified as a dead language. It's no longer published on a regular basis at all. So I include them here because they're fascinating and they are still living scripts. However, you're unlikely to ever come across them in your work or in your travels because they have such a limited usage. So I'll just go through them briefly. There's the Neo-Tiffinagh script of the Berbers in North Africa, which predates Arab conquest. There's the Inkol language, which was invented in Guinea in Africa in 1949, used to write the Inkol minority language. The Samaritan script, which is still used by a very small Samaritan community in Holon, Israel. Syriac is the ancient language, which is the ancient Syrian script, which is still used by Assyrian Christians in minority communities throughout the Middle East. Inuktitut / Cree is a script that was invented by a missionary to write indigenous languages in Canada in the 1800s. Although it was actually inspired by Devanagari in India, some people have described this as being an alien-like script that you might see on a UFO due to their geometric sort of shapes. There is also the Cherokee syllabary, which I alluded to just now. Again, this was invented by a missionary to write the Native American Cherokee language in the 1800s, which continues a tradition that stretches right back to Cyrillic of it being missionaries that invent writing systems to write down a language that's never been written before. That continued right up until 1800s. There's the E, which is a syllabary that's been used since the 15th century by minority people in China, and this has an incredible backstory as well, but I don't have time to go into it today. Old Chiki is an alphabet invented in India in 1925 to write the minority Santali language. Fraser is a script invented by a missionary to write the Lisu language in southwest China. And Tai Le is a script related to Thai, used by the Dai minority people in southwestern China. So that is the end of this introduction to writing systems. Thanks for coming out tonight, and I'm happy to talk to you more afterwards if you'd like to discuss anything more in detail. If there's anything else you'd like to know that I may or may not be able to answer. Thanks again for coming out. Please help yourself to a drink. Take your time to look around the exhibition, and thanks for coming.